It's like physics. Like you hold down the middle C and hit the bottom note, that middle C will ring sympathetic vibrations. And there's an overtone series and all that. But our perceptions are, well, they are just not as we can't perceive things like we can't hear or smell like a dog or a cat. As a species, our sensibilities are not as acute. But on the other hand, our sixth sense can be enhanced if it achieves the right frequency.
He is a pianist, arranger, composer, conductor, and actor.
He has performed with Dizzy Gillespie, Savion Glover, Ruth Brown, and countless more.
All the jazz greats.
George Caldwell is our guest today. My name is Nancy Magarill. I'm a singer, songwriter, composer, performer, graphic and web designer.
And I'm Peter Michael Marino, and I'm a writer, producer, creator, performer, and educator.
We are New York-based artists you may or may not have heard of.
And we are here to introduce you to other artists you may or may not have heard of. George is in Buffalo right now. It is winter, and how do you do it I mean, you didn't grow up there, but
yeah, I don't get it.
You've chosen, this is the life you've chosen.
Well, I lived in Oberlin for a while when I was in school.
That's cold.
And I like to a lot of really cold countries.
That was like about a year ago, right, at Oberlin?
Yeah, right. A year and a half.
All right, so you're made for the cold. To me it's like not. I mean, I lived in Buffalo for 4 years, and I guess with all of my visits there, probably it would add up to like another 2. But it's not so much the cold. Although I do remember crying on the way to school, like those stories. Those stories that I walked through 10 feet of snow. I did. I really did. And I would just be sobbing, like just mad at the world, like this sucks. Why are they? But it was really more about like all of the inconvenience. Like the snow is such an inconvenience, right?
Yeah.
Like parking is hard, and like just having to like use more gas in your house because it's covered in snow.
Having to dig your cars out.
Your car out.
Can't walk on the sidewalk, got to walk on the street.
You can't get a delivery from La Nova Pizzeria. They're not going to deliver if the snow is more than 3 feet.
Yeah.
Not to mention, it's really hard to carry your piano around. And
yeah. You have to think about it. You have to think about that. It's true.
I mean, that is the whole thing. I used to lug my keyboard, my guitar, my guitar stand, like all of this stuff. And I used to roll it to the subway. I finally got to a point where I was like, all right, I just got to take a cab because this is just ridiculous. Yeah. But it was so much work for me to get to a gig. So I can only imagine. I don't know if you're carrying keyboards or if you're always playing at gigs that are pianos.
Yeah, George, what's in your rider? What's in your technical rider? You won't be bringing your own equipment, is that right?
Yeah, I'll be bringing on my own equipment. I'll be hooking all my equipment up. I won't have a PA. No, I just usually bring a keyboard and speakers.
What kind of gigs are you playing these days?
Yeah, what's the last great gig that you remember playing, recently? You do many of them, so.
The last great gig I played, they have a jazz series like in the wintertime. They used to have that. I don't know if you were familiar with. They had the jazz series at the Albright Knox, the AKG they call it now.
Oh.
And, they finished remodeling it and everything. It's all like really.
So fancy. It's like a little performance room.
There's a cafe there now. Huh? It's very kind of modern, huge room. It's like an architectural wonder.
Is it landmarked? It's like a landmark building?
Yeah, it's an art building. It's like
the
building itself is a work of art. Yeah,
it's a very impressive building and a very impressive museum as well.
Yeah,
and is this in the center of Buffalo, or where is this?
Yes, it's in the Elmwood Village area. It's on the Buff State campus property.
Sounds like you play for a lot of stuff around town that are more prestigious kind of gigs.
You're the guy.
As well as
You're the guy.
Well, That's what people say. I don't want to. I don't want that kind of thing said about me though, because
No,
it's
you're
way
one
over
of the
my
guys.
head.
You're one of the
I'm
guys.
one of the guys. Yeah.
Why don't you want that something like that said about you?
Well, I feel like it couldn't possibly be true. There's so many great musicians here, you
Yeah.
know. But it's I don't know why it's hard for me to feel because people say it, they sometimes say things.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, it is being humble, is like I understand how you can be like that when like you respect the community so
Yeah,
much and
yeah,
that you are a teacher, but you also love to learn, right? So
yeah,
you're inspired by your community. So there couldn't be a hierarchy necessarily
yeah, yeah,
in your the way you were, right?
yeah.
Well, when you were younger coming up, well, I know you didn't start in Buffalo. It sounds like you lived in New York probably for some time, and
Mm.
then you eventually went back to Buffalo. But did you feel like you were given the opportunities by other people who had played before you that had that sort of notoriety
Hmm.
to sort of bring you up and sort of take you under their wing? That's kind of
Oh
something I've
yes,
always felt about
yes,
the jazz musician world, that there's a
yes.
whole
Yeah, I do.
camaraderie that's very different than almost anywhere else.
Well, I started in Memphis, Tennessee.
Is that where you grew up?
Yeah, that's where I went to college and well, to make a short story long, no.
I was
I,
actually trying to remember your childhood story, and I was like, I think it's a lot. There's a lot of something, and I don't know if
yeah,
it's siblings. I don't know if it's moving. Maybe it's
right.
both. Tell us, George, please, so we can figure out how you became this jazz musician.
Well, I was born in Clarksdale, Mississippi.
Hmm.
That's where the famous
Mm.
blues song about playing the guitar against the devil at midnight.
Is it
No.
Crossroads.
Clarksville?
Yeah, Clarksdale.
Clarksdale.
Clarksdale is Tennessee. But like a lot of those British rock bands, they got like the Beatles and the Rollins, they all went to Clarksdale.
Wow. There's the Beatles again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So my dad was teaching at this junior college there, Coahoma County Junior College, and then he got a job teaching at another HBCU in Augusta, Georgia, and it was at Payne College. So he taught there, and that's where I was sent from to live with my grandmother.
And did you start playing? Is that when you started playing, or what
No,
brought you into
no.
playing music?
Well, my dad, when we were in Augusta, he played trumpet, he played piano, he played guitar, and he
Wow.
played the baritone horn.
Huh.
And was he doing it just for himself, or was he teaching that as well?
No, no, he was teaching physics, chemistry, and math.
Oh
Wow.
my gosh.
Yeah, he was
And on the side, just playing all these
Yeah,
yeah,
instruments.
right,
yeah.
right.
Well, he told me, he said he started out intending to be a musician, and then he eventually, well, what he said was, I couldn't whoop him in music, so he said I had to do something else. So while we were in Augusta, I remember he used to play at Fort Gordon, Camp Gordon. It's an army base there, and he played at the officers club, and he and a guy named Starks, Mr. Starks, and I think my dad was playing trumpet, and I think Starks was playing piano.
By the way, I love watching you imagining this in your head. The
I think he's
listener
trying to
can't.
remember it, is
Yeah,
what I
Yeah,
think.
you're
that's
no,
what
but
it
you're
is.
seeing the picture. You're seeing the whole picture. Yeah.
True.
And
Yeah,
you're just a kid and you're on an army base and your dad is
yeah.
playing on stage.
No, oh
And
no, I never went. I never went there.
no, they
But
oh,
but,
right.
but he
Thank
would
you.
go to I was too young,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And he would go and play, on the weekends and like that. And then the
And
rest
he
of the time
played
he was
jazz.
teaching. Yeah.
All
But
right.
he also played classical music. He taught me how to play the first movement of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata,
Wow.
dun, 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 that one. And he taught me just by putting my hands on the piano and say, go another day to go like this.
Oh, nice.
In 1959, he got a job at the same college that his father, George Sr., and my father's junior, and I'm three-year.
Senior.
Yeah.
That's a first.
Yeah. But so he got a job at the college that's where he went to college, and it's also where his dad taught. He played violin. They were he
I
and
love how you're like miming it just in case we don't know what that is.
That looked
Just
more
in
like a
case.
fiddle. I don't know
Right.
much about violins or
Right.
fiddles, but that looked like a
Well,
fiddle.
kind of the same.
I actually used to play violin. I took violin for maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, something
I
like that.
love the violin.
Do
I
you,
love strings.
do you think it's important, and do you try to encourage the students who you teach? Do you think it's important that people who are studying an instrument also learn other instruments?
I think I can't speak for that in with finality, but I think it's a good thing if you do. I think it's a
Yeah.
really good thing.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm thinking about like in the world of theater, right? They say,
Yeah.
look, maybe you want to be an actor, maybe you want to be a director.
Uh-huh.
Study all the other stuff too.
Yeah.
Because knowing all the other stuff is going to
No,
make you better at the one
yes.
thing
At
that you
at either
wind
one,
up
at any
doing,
one of
right?
those. Yeah. Yeah.
But conversely, you're taking time away from that one thing, right?
Yeah.
By
Yeah.
studying other things. But on
Yeah.
the other side of that is, how do you know what that one thing is? Sometimes you go through a long time thinking what the one thing is, and then you're like, oh, I don't actually like that thing anymore.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I excel at this other thing that
But
I
at
had
least
no
I learned
idea I did.
about stage managing. That actually,
Yeah.
I'm going to look
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
that.
So if I need a gig.
Mhm.
Yeah. And actually the
Yeah.
more versatile you are as a musician, the
Yeah.
better you are to work with other musicians as well. Because you can
Yes.
understand
Yes.
their
Yeah.
language and how they play and what they need to play,
Oh,
especially
yes.
with the tunings
Yes.
of different instruments and
Yeah.
it's a whole different ball game. I actually learned that as a composer when I was composing for NYU. I composed for the
Oh.
classical studio at NYU for about 10 years, and having to write for other instruments was a real education for me because I had never done that before. I had never been a composer until computers came out because I was always a
Oh.
singer and a songwriter. But
Oh.
then it opened up a world for me
Oh.
because I was able to, just play around with different instrumentation. But then learning what the limitations are of those instruments was
Yeah.
really important for me.
Oh. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah. So I had no idea that you had done all that stuff, that musical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, those were the days.
Yeah. Yeah. I was kind of stupid. I was kind of, I was real smart for school stuff and all that, but I was kind of
Well, your
stupid.
dad was a physics teacher, right? So you
Yeah. Yeah.
probably learned a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. But I was dumb because I should have kept playing violin. But
Why?
dumb George, I mean, apparently I had talent for it, but dumb George, I was like playing a lot of basketball, doing stuff like that too. And then and that was playing piano was taking time away from that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but
And I was
piano's
like,
pretty
yeah,
amazing.
and
And to
then
be the kind of piano
now
player you are,
violin, yeah, so
George, I mean, I have seen you
dumb.
play live under various, types of gigs, and I cannot imagine that you would be having oh, I'm going to get in trouble now from violinists. I cannot imagine that you could possibly be having as much fun playing the violin the way you do when you're at a keyboard.
Well, if I had continued it, I could do that.
yeah, it's pretty much being able to jam and improvise on any instrument is pretty
Oh, because
remarkable on
violin would
levels.
be a jazz instrument as well.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, see,
Yeah.
that's how ignorant I am. My brain just snapped right to, oh, it's classical. So you're just playing at people's weddings, you know?
Yeah. If you
No.
want to hear a really cool quartet, check out the Sirius String Quartet. I played
Oh
with
yeah.
them for a while, and these guys play every kind of music, and they
Oh.
can jam like nobody's
Oh.
business. It's pretty
Oh,
amazing.
and there, the Kronos Quartet, right?
Yeah,
Don't
absolutely.
They
Yeah.
play that. They play Jimi Hendrix. Don't don't
Right.
Yeah, it's
You know
great.
what? It's sort of like what we were talking about with Tiffany Chang. So the orchestral musicians that are classical musicians that can only play classical,
Yeah,
they're much more limited. I mean, they do that beautifully, but that's a limitation. But when you're like to me, when you play jazz and when you have that ability to just be loose and improvise, you almost can play anything. And musicians, it doesn't matter, some are classically trained, but when they
yeah,
can break out of that and
yeah,
jam, it is
yeah,
just it's
yeah,
beautiful. It's
yeah.
it's so inspiring to me.
You can use the classical technique to get to be able to access those things, and also you can use your knowledge of whatever instrument that it's
Yeah,
see, I started really on in playing classical music,
I'm
and
sure.
that's what I got my bachelor's from Oberlin in classical piano. with a minor in.
Were you like playing with orchestras, or were you like playing like recitals? Like
I was playing
what?
like recitals and stuff
Look at
like
his
that.
face.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
it makes me so. I just like literally got
Yeah.
goosebumps. It's so nerve-wracking.
It's so
Your
Yeah.
formal.
your big the audition is nerve-wracking. The
Yeah.
callbacks, and then like the presentation at the very end. After 4 years of that, you got to
Yeah.
just go
Yeah.
up there on a
Yes. The senior
stage.
recital. Yeah.
Holy
Yeah.
shit,
Yeah. Yeah.
you did it!
Well,
Yeah.
what made you go turn to jazz?
Yeah.
Well, my dad loved all kinds of music. So one of his favorite composers was Rachmaninoff, and
Hmm.
his favorite Rachmaninoff composition was the Second Piano Concerto. He had the Ravel G major piano concerto. The second movement of that is so beautiful. Maurice Ravel was an impressionist. He was one of the Paris Six composers. Ravel, Debussy was his name that did the
You are
shoot.
asking the wrong people.
The one that goes da dee da 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 dee da 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 da. A satir.
Oh, I know that song. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like
Yeah, yeah.
commercials where it's raining.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. Yeah. But yeah, and so this thing it
That's a
was
beautiful
like
song.
this had all this orchestration in it that was like, I don't know, theatrical. So beautiful, so beautiful. And then the theme is so long, you think you're just listening to a piano, because there's
Uh-huh.
nothing else playing but the piano. It's
Right.
long, but it's actually like really, really beautiful. And then at the end of this phrase, they're coming back around to the second statement, and the strings just go whoa, and it's oh my god.
And that's what made you become a jazz musician.
Yeah. Well, Ravel and Debussy used a lot of jazz voicings and
Right, right, right.
harmonies and everything. Yeah, yeah. But
Wow.
but we also listened to my favorite dad's favorite bands were in order: Duke Ellington, Count Basie, and Artie Shaw. And so we listened, and and all the solo people, Louis Armstrong, of course. That's why my sister and I love. Well, that's why the whole family. But my sister and I stayed in music, and my two brothers were kind of like elite athletes. So then we moved to Holly Springs, Mississippi, after living in Augusta, Georgia. That's when I really started studying piano. My dad found a teacher or one of the faculty at this college. It was called Rust College, historically black college. I started taking piano lessons from Mr. McKenzie. I loved piano lessons. Sometimes when I was practicing, my dad bought us an old upright player piano that they took the mechanism out of.
Oh, cool.
It was like an upright grand. It was really,
Yeah.
it was really tall.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Ooh.
And so we practice on that, my sister and I. And sometimes when I was practicing or playing, sometimes the weirdest thing would happen to me. I mean, you're into what you're doing, but I would get this weird thing would happen where it looked like, and it wasn't actually a vision, but it felt like that I floated up out of myself and I'm just watching myself do this.
That sounds like an out-of-body experience.
Yeah, yeah. And it could be induced.
The
You
power of
just had
music.
to,
Wow.
play the music and practice it. And then when you play it at a place and at a tempo that is not too fast and that doesn't, it's like this thing happens. It's amazing. It's an amazing thing. Anyway,
Does that happen? Whoa, 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 whoa. We're not jumping off of that just yet because that
well,
is cool. Does
yeah,
that still happen to you when you play? Has that been
not
happening throughout, or was that only when you were younger?
it's very, very rare now. But the normal on the normal side, that has elevated. But it's very rare for it to be like and I believe that's what gets musicians to play, people who just like really get into the music. And there's an elevating thing that happens. It's like, okay, here it is.
Well, it's vibrations, right?
That's exactly what I
Yeah.
was about to say. It's like physics. like you hold down the middle C and hit the bottom note, that middle C will ring sympathetic vibrations. And there's an
Yeah.
overtone series and all that. But our perceptions are, well, they are just not as we can't perceive things, like we can't hear or smell like a dog or a cat. As a species, our sensibilities are not as acute. But on the other hand, our sixth sense can be enhanced if it achieves the right frequency, kind of. You know what I mean? It's like that. It's like
Yeah.
you tune
You talk
yourself.
about this with your students?
Yeah.
How do you get yourself in that state? Let's say you're getting ready to play and you're just not feeling it that day. Can you push yourself into that state so you get there? Or is
Well,
it just
if
something that
you,
happens?
well, it's something where okay, from the time I was a little kid, first started practicing and started playing for people, I would get so nervous because I was, basically kind of a shy
Hmm.
person, and I was always first or second or third in my class. I was, smart like that.
Yeah.
But I was, because of that, I got skipped ahead,
Right.
so I was always the smallest guy in my class, one of the smartest, and people that was just saying, okay,
Yeah.
kick
You're a
my ass
threat.
daily, please. So reading, music, reading, meditative kind of things seemed to appeal to me. And music was, I remember the first time, what's the name of that movie where they use Adagio for strings, a Vietnam movie,
There's
back
either
in,
Apocalypse Now
yeah,
or
Yeah.
Apocalypse Now. That's it. That's when they start playing that and the helicopters coming over that
yeah,
and all that. And the first time I heard that, I cried fool,
Wow.
like an idiot. Tears,
I
just
can see
tears. I
that.
still can feel it. Like I didn't know, I didn't know something could be that fucking, oh, I'm sorry,
It's okay.
You're totally allowed.
so beautiful and so true. Music is just it's real. If you're open to it,
It's
it's
the
a
best.
very powerful
Yeah.
thing, you know. So, and I for the longest time, because I wanted to play basketball, I could be like my brothers. And I loved it. I loved it. I still love to watch it, but it's like jazz kind of. And so I used to get away with not doing everything I could, but just doing enough to do good.
Mm.
And one day I realized that I was doing that. Well, I knew I was doing it. And it was a source of shame for me. And I had a thing happen to me that woke me up and say, what would happen if you would really bust your ass? What would happen if you did that?
Yeah.
Really just,
Go for it.
I mean, just
Dive
go,
in.
just go
Yeah.
and open all doors open, all burners on full, ears wide open, just what would happen if you did that? After I graduated, I'm at Memphis State, and I go to this guy who's a big WDIA star, and he always asked me, because he was a musician. His name was Robert Garner. They called him Honeymoon Garner.
Oh, I'm totally stealing that name from
And
you.
I know this is a
anyway,
great
so
name.
so he would always say, "Play something for me," and I play like a Chopin etude or a Bach prelude and fugue or something like that. And then at the end, he would always ask me the same thing: "Do you ever think about playing jazz?" And I was drinking the Kool-Aid of the era, which is that classical musicians just could not play jazz music.
Aha.
And I would say,
Of
"Oh,
the era, I think
yeah."
it's still a stigma, isn't it?
Well, it's not so much now because there's a lot of classically trained musicians. Like a lot of the new jazz stars are classically trained, and then they got this unbelievable technique, and then they got
Mm.
the jazz thing. Like there's a guy named Emmett Cohen who is Unbelievable. There's Julius Rodriguez. There's a bunch of people, man. Wow.
Listener, look these people up. Look these
Yeah,
people
yeah,
up.
yeah,
But yeah, it's like having the classical training is like the special sauce
yeah,
in
yeah,
jazz, right?
yeah, yeah. It's
That's cool.
well
That's cool
put.
that they can do that, that they
Yeah,
can parlay it into
yeah.
jazz.
I never believed I could do it. I didn't
No.
even try.
Right.
And
Oh my
then
gosh.
And then every now and then, though, my dad, like I remember my dad, we would share stuff like, and I remember when the big bossa nova craze hit in the 70s, what's his name? Stan Getz and Astrid Gilberto. And so I came home from my paper route after school, and my dad came home from the lab, and he got there before I did, and he was listening to the radio. He said, Mocus, you aren't going to believe this, because he called me Mocus. That was his.
What's Mocus?
Well, I never knew what it was until after my dad died. I was looking up another word I used to belong to one of those book clubs, and as a prize for signing up, I got
Book of
the
names.
Oxford English Dictionary,
Ah.
Wow.
but it was in miniature, and I was looking up a mineral. And then, oh yeah. What's the chocolate and called mocha? I was looking up mocha. And then, because sometimes I would just look at words just to see where they came from.
Yeah, I'm into
So
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's
there's
cool.
So
it has a name. I forget what it is.
Etymology?
yeah,
Right.
yes, yes. And
Good one, Nancy. Good one.
wow, it's good.
Every now and then,
That's
I
really
surprise Pete like I
good.
know
Yeah,
something.
yeah. So, and I'm looking at that, and it said ancient, in a parenthesis, it said ancient Mocus, and then it also said see chalcedony. It's a mineral. It's a semi-precious stone,
Hmm.
Chalcedony.
chalcedony,
Sure, that makes sense.
and I thought it was chalcedony.
I thought affidavit was a fit of it when I was a kid. I had this huge fight with my mother, and I was like, I saw the affidavit. And she's like, looked at me like, what the hell are you talking about? And she's like, you mean affidavit?
We used
So
to
yeah,
have
Chalcedony.
my mom always made Italian meals, and of course, you use Polly-O cheese. That's like a brand of
Oh yeah,
cheese.
yeah. Uh-huh.
And I remember coming home from like fourth grade. My mom came to pick me up in fourth grade, and I come out of school and I'm crying, and she's like, "Why are you crying?" I'm like, "Because we learned about Polly-O today, and we've been eating Polly-O this whole time." No joke.
Oh,
It's
well,
okay. They have a polio vaccine.
right, but
Thank
polio's
God.
coming back.
Thank God. And I do want to get back to
Oh yeah, yeah.
so we got the nickname, but we have to go backwards from there. I don't know where we left off. You're just discovering jazz, but I do
Yeah.
need to say that George is really good at making coffee. When
Oh,
you said mocha, it made me think of so George will spend a good portion of the morning making coffee when you are a guest in his house.
Oh,
Also,
that's
really good if you have a cold. My friend George Caldwell will
uh,
look over some ginger and brown sugar and molasses, whatever the hell you put in
honey.
there,
No,
honey,
just ginger and honey.
ginger and honey.
wow.
He will look
Mhm.
over this cooking for 3 hours, and
Wow.
then you will
Ah,
you will then drink it, and you
And
will
you
be
will
fine.
heal.
You will
yeah.
heal.
It's really good for
You're
you.
magic. You're
Yeah,
magic.
I found that out. Yeah.
I was envisioning just going back a little bit because I'm obsessed with the out of body experience of
Oh yeah,
musicianship. And Pete, I
yeah.
want to find out if you've ever experienced that as well, creating or doing what you do. But
No.
no, okay.
Ah,
You seem to have been going to a place where like something happened that because we were talking about ever recreating that, passing that on to the students,
oh
and it
yeah.
seemed to be like there was this big moment or something for you. I don't know, maybe I got lost in
No, well,
my
yeah, yeah.
feelings about that.
Yeah, it just seemed to be a place. I heard it described once. There's a pianist that I went to school with at Memphis State, and he went on to become like he's pretty well jazz star, pretty well known jazz star, but he's not like Wynton Marsalis or
Right.
that or what or
But
whoever.
within the jazz circles,
Yeah, yeah,
everybody
but
knows him. Yeah.
jazz people know who he is, and
Yeah.
he's an incredible artist. He has a video where he says sometimes you get this feeling, this he said it seems like you're playing, and you just like what does he say? Creativity just takes over,
Yeah. It's like a
and you
flow.
and you're not even there. You're just watching. You're just watching it and experiencing it.
Do you feel like that when you play jazz regularly?
No, it doesn't always happen. I feel I have moments where it's really good, though. It's really good.
Yeah.
but there's sometime, it just seems like everything comes together and you're not even, I don't know, it's like you just let go or something. I don't know what you call it,
I
but
mean, I feel like that sometimes happens for audiences at an event.
yes, I
Totally.
think
You
it
know, like
happens for actors too.
Madison Square Garden, you're at a
Yeah,
concert, man.
yeah,
Everyone is just the heartbeats are
Hmm.
going.
yeah,
A Broadway
yeah,
musical, right? You can
Yeah.
yeah,
feel there's an
right.
electricity in the air. It's
Yes,
all,
yeah,
yeah.
and
So,
A gay club at 2 a.m. Believe
ah,
me,
yeah,
there's sparkles.
the
Everyone is
vibe, yeah,
vibing.
yeah.
uh, have you ever experienced it when you're playing with a lot of musicians, or is it mostly when you're by yourself?
It's mostly when I'm playing with other people.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Wow, it's
mostly.
like you're all in
It's like, yeah.
vibrating together.
And the thing about that makes well, the shows that I've done have all been jazz oriented. The Broadway shows, Black and Blue.
Oh, when you've played. Oh, right. I saw the one that you did
Yeah,
out in New Jersey.
Wait, you play Black and Blue?
yeah,
Is
yeah,
that the Ruth Brown? You know, I
yeah.
worked with Julie Crosby, who
Oh
was,
yeah, I know. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. I
I was
wrote a musical with her, called
wow.
Mankind. Yeah, and I remember hearing all about that musical about Black and Blue.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Ruth. I even I was a member of Ruth Brown's band. I had a lot of scholarships when I graduated. I even had got a letter from Yale, but Yale was not known for a music school at that time. And then I lost my way. Vietnam, Martin Luther King being killed, John Kennedy being killed, Medgar Evers being killed, all those freedom riders
Yeah.
getting beat senseless in Selma, all that.
Yeah.
I lost it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're a sensitive fella, and there's a
Yeah,
lot going on, and it's
yeah,
got to affect you emotionally as an
yeah,
artist, as a human being, as an optimist, because you're an optimist, and
yeah,
the world
yeah,
is you're watching all these terrible things happen around you,
yeah,
and you're that age where you're so impressionable.
yeah.
Is it going to be like this forever?
Yeah,
You know,
and I was like, who wants to live in a world like this?
sure.
It's going to
I
be
try,
interesting now that you're teaching to see kids as they go through the next 4 years or whatever time, because I think it's a
yeah,
very tumultuous time.
yes,
It's nothing like what you were going through back then, but there's a lot of potential for it to reflect that, right?
yeah,
And I
yes,
think it's going to be interesting to see how the kids that
Hmm.
you work with respond to what's happening.
Well,
yeah,
it's and not only is it's going to work the other way too, though. It's right.
yeah,
It's
What do you
going to
yeah,
mean?
like people a false sense of bravado because that's what they're modeling, right? That's what our leaders are all being like. I'm doing what I want. I'm doing what I want.
yeah,
I'm doing. I didn't do that. It's going to give all the other students this like
yeah,
the
yeah,
ones who are. I mean, we can't assume just because you're an artist you are
yeah,
necessarily
A good person?
a good person, right?
yeah,
Right.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
No, I
yeah,
think I
but
mean, that's a whole
that's
other
that's
issue
a
to
whole
me
nother
of
thing. You're right.
right,
You're right.
what kids are that young kids are learning that about truth and about behavior. But I actually think it was that way back then as well. You're talking about people that were killing people I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. Wholesale,
yeah.
Me Lie, and all that stuff. Oh my
Yeah, I feel like I've lived, talk about sheltered, right? You lived across the school. I
God.
feel like I grew up in a very upper middle class Jewish neighborhood in Baltimore, and I felt,
Baltimore.
yeah,
Okay.
in
Yeah,
just outside of Baltimore.
yeah,
I was very lucky. We were very privileged, and we sort of had this, it was post World War II. So even though my
yeah.
grandfather lost his entire family and a lot of my relatives
Oh my
lost their
God.
families, we
Yeah,
still had, because we were 2 generations after, we had this sort of haze. And, and now we're looking at the world, we're seeing, as Jews, what's happening with the anti Semitism that's rising.
yeah,
And then also watching what's happening with this, with the Republican Party. I'm just going to
Uh,
say it, with the
well,
hatred, the racism,
yeah,
the anti-Muslim sentiment, like all of
yeah,
this, the homophobia, everything,
yeah. The
and seeing that
anti-immigrant.
that's what the right absolutely anti-immigrant.
Yeah,
Anti-human.
Yeah, anti-civil rights and
yeah,
like it's just I feel like that golden age is over, and we're about
yeah,
to enter into something that is not unprecedented, but something that we never all thought
yeah,
we'd see in our lifetime.
yeah,
So I think it's going to be interesting to see how the kids react,
yeah. I have
especially
this great fear that it's, you said unprecedented. I think it's just going to be like not nice. It
no,
might.
not nice at all. It's
Yeah,
already not nice. It's not
yeah.
nice for a lot of people. And I think it's also going to be a full scale robbery. That's a whole
Well,
other thing. But that, I
yeah,
think it's just,
yeah. I
it's,
have no idea. It's like waiting, waiting for the other shoe to drop.
yeah. So I feel like how are you thinking about that as a teacher with the students that you're working with? Like what, and I know, Pete, we have
Well,
to wrap it up soon, but
Only because I have another thing, that's all.
okay.
oh, well, I don't, I'm just looking to them just to see what they think.
Yeah.
You know?
What did Tiffany teach us? You meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
Yes. And also now I'm, it's a freshman seminar, what I'm teaching. And, it's jazz history. So it's like, 2 or 3 free credits for, what do you call it? Electives.
Right.
Yeah. So people are taking the course that don't have any connection with any music or anything like that.
Oh, wow.
They have songs that they like, and everybody likes Taylor Swift and all, you know what I mean. So sometimes I asked them, I said, anybody know who Duke Ellington is?
And none of them knew?
I was like, it was quiet for maybe a few minutes, and then somebody raised their hand, and they said they'd heard of him.
George, I do hate to end this conversation, but we have talked about things that were even more interesting than what we thought we would talk about. Hey, thanks for checking us out. Links to today's guest can be found in the show notes.
Don't forget to subscribe, like us, rate us, and tell all your friends about arts and craft.